for offering me this chance to say a few words about the introduction of the system of native administration, Idara Ahliya, in the Sudan, and to highlight the phases of the development of this institution and to discuss to what extent the abolition of native administration or Al-Idara Al-Ahliya affected the maintenance of security and peace in the northern Kordofan, in the northern Sudan, and with a special reference to tribalized provinces such as Kordofan, Darfur, and the Red Sea provinces. The system of native administration was introduced by the British colonial administration in different parts of the world under the title of indirect rule. And this system in the Sudan was given the name of Al-Idara Al-Ahliya, or native administrations. If we would like to understand the mechanism of this system, we need to pay some attention to the paper presented by Roland Robinson, who talk about collaboration mechanisms. And native administration as a system of administration and governance was introduced as a package of this collaboration mechanism established between the indigenous notable of the Sudan and the British colonial administrators. The core of this system was based on the memorandum of Lord Kitchener, who advised his subordinate to cooperate with indigenous leaders who didn't have direct commitment to the ideology of the Mahdist state. In this respect, I would consider Kordofan as a laboratory of native administration, where the British officers from the very beginning reconfirmed the tribal leaders in their pre-Mahdist positions and gave them a wide range of authority, including the settlement of tribal conflict, maintenance of justice, and collection of taxes. But the process of the development from Kordofan to the rest of the Sudan passed through different stages. In 1920, the governor of the northern Sudan held a meeting in Khartoum and decided to develop the experience of Kordofan to the rest of the Sudanese provinces. And this idea was given a kind of support and encouragement when Lord Milner published his report of 1920. And later on, the British administrator, working within the framework of their divide and rule, they tried to change their choice of the collaborator and clients at the grassroots levels. And they shifted from the educated elite to the tribal leader. When they lost the faith in the tribal leaders, and they strengthened the position of tribal leaders or the native administrators, Nazir, Umda, Sheikh, in Kordofan and in other parts of the Sudan by introducing a series of local ordinances. It started with the powers of nomad in 1920 and reached its peak when they issued the ordinance of the native court in 1935. This system greatly contributes to the maintenance of security and order in the rural Sudan. But after 1934, the government changed its policy and the equation of the collaboration mechanism and moved towards party politics. This paved the ground to the interference or to the involvement of the tribal leaders, the Nazirs, the Umdas, and the other as a representative of their own people in the constitutional institution established by the government after in the 40s, such as the Advisory Council of for the Northern Sudan. And in this council we can find the tribal leader had a wide representation within the council more than 50% from different provinces of the Sudan. The involvement of the tribal leaders in the macro level policy of the government put them in direct confrontation with the educated elites. And this led in particularly the leader of the so-called modern forces to work hard towards the abolition of the native administration. The abolition of al-Idara al-Ahliya, it didn't have a convincing rationale, but it came as a result of the political interest of the modern forces to break down the political chain between the sectarian leaders in the Khartoum and their clients, the tribal client in the rural areas. And this issue was raised in 1965 when the government of October maintained its control over the political scene and supported by the communist parties. The representative of the Communist Party perceives the native administration as a colonial rule that suppress its local people at the grassroots level of the society and greatly contribute to greatly slow down the process of the development in the rural area. Then they raise the issue of the abolition of native administration. The immediate reaction came from within was that the tribal leader formed the association of the tribal leader of the Sudan and advised their people not to pay the taxes to the local government. This create a kind of difficulties between the local governments in the rural area and in Kordofan in particular and the policymaker in Khartoum, because they realized that the system of local government was in no position to fill the administrative vacuum that was created by the abolition of native administration in the rural area. As a result of this kind of pressure, then after October government, when the coalition government of the traditional party came to power, they changed the policy and worked towards the democratization of native administration. This kind of political shift greatly contributed to the survival of native administration until 1970, when it was abolished by the Nimeri regime. After the abolition of native administration, Nimeri government decided to separate judicial from the administrative powers to create a web of native courts and local governments in order to fill the vacuum that created by the abolition of native administration. The result of that, after 1 decade or 10 years, the governor of Kordofan came to a conclusion that the abolition of native administration was a grave mistake because it largely contributed to the political instability and the disturb of law and order, basically mainly in tribalized provinces such as Kordofan and Darfur. As a result of that, he submitted a proposal to his superior in Khartoum in order to revive the system of native administration. And this step took place in 1983. After 10 years, the provincial administration in Kordofan and other provinces came to a consensus that the abolition of native administration was a grave mistake. Then in order to rectify the situation, they appealed to their superior in Khartoum to revive the system of native administration or Idara Ahli. The initiation was taken by Governor of Kordofan at that time, Al-Fatih Bishara, who submitted a memorandum to his superior in Khartoum, namely Jafar Numeri, in order to revive the system. The immediate reaction of the government in Khartoum was that they formed a ministerial committee to study this matter and report or put some kind of recommendation that would help to implementation of this proposal. As a result of that, the system of native administration was revived in Kordofan, and Fatah Bishara advised the government also to revive the system in Darfur. Before the system reinstated in the northern province, the Nimeri regime was overthrown. Then what happened after the democratic government came to power? Sadiq al-Mahdi, in his first speech in front of the assembly in 1986, he called for the revival of native administration in all northern provinces. And he tried to give full power to the Nazirs in nomadic area and semi-nomadic area, and give only administrative power to the Umdas and Sheikh of sedentary area in northern Sudan and in Jazeera area. But after the revival of the native administration, the tribal leader faced some kind of difficulty to restore their power and maintain security of order, because the government at the ground level created two parallel institutions: the local government's institution and the native administration institution. For this reason, they submitted a kind of memorandum to the Ministry of Justice in order to look in their powers and give them further administrative authority in order to maintain their role. Before the implementation of this system at large scale in the northern Sudan, the democratic government was overthrown by the coup of 1989. Then how did the current regime refuse a system of native administration? The current regime abolished the democratic system, banned the political parties, but they subscribed to the revival of the system of native administration. But at the same time, they tried to Islamize the institution of native administration and change their political role, in the sense that they call, for example, the institution of native administration, instead of Idara Ahliya, they call it Amara, and change the name of the Nazir to Amir, and so forth. With reference to the role, they advise the Amir to be the head of the forces of Difa' Sha'bi and other forces in order to maintain, to contribute to the implementation of the government policy in Khartoum. In one of my interviews with the late Nazir Abd al-Jabbar Hussein Zakiddin, the Nazir greatly criticized this system, because he argues that the government created a two parallel institution that greatly took over the role of the native administration, and the tribal leader lost their power and control over the process of decision-making at their localities. Due to this factor, the system of native administration, after its revival during the Inqaz period and Nimeri regime, didn't contribute to the maintenance of the security and order, because the tribal leaders in their locality didn't have full authorization to contribute to the maintenance of security and justice and maintenance of law and order. Due to this fact, I do believe that this system wouldn't be effective unless we look seriously into the authority of the tribal leader and how the system would function shoulder to shoulder to the other parallel institutions that created by the central government in order to undermine the position of tribal leader in a way or another. And thank you very much.